The whole point of this, in my opinion, is that we have here a folk phenomenon that is extremely difficult to find in modern culture. A folk phenomenon which doesn't have a high gloss professional wing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It just doesn't. And we find as well that it's very difficult to know what you're doing. It's easy to do, but it's very difficult to know what you're doing. And so under these circumstances, now that a certain infrastructural constraint has been broken,
the
best thing to do is to just see what happens. And this is where I was the opposite of a number of my friends who said, and now this is our moment. We will seize, a considerable portion of the infrastructure, and we're better positioned to enter the mainstream than than traditional fantasy is. Because we do all these other things. And I said no. Instead, I'm back to the wilderness.
I think it's also important for me to clarify how we are doing things there. That our market is much smaller. Just because there is not that much people which are both speaking French and playing experimental RPG around the world, which also begs the question of the business model. For instance, if I'm being stereotypical, there are two kinds of people publishing games in France. So I'm the kind of people who have a job beyond my.
Right.
I'm not trying to even profit from what I'm doing. If I'm at break even, it's okay.
Right.
And it also does not, how should I say that, consume my life.
Right. Well,
I'm not sure.
We hope.
I'm not sure.
You're fighting that fight right now, but yes, okay.
But because
my wife, I might say that, but my wife would have had a different answer.
Okay. I can relate to that. And there are, another kind of business model is that if you want to profit even just a little bit in France, you have to go all in. You have to produce a lot. You have to brand yourself. You have to be everywhere. You have to
calculate VAT on everything in this direction or that direction. Right.
Exactly. And it's really a kind of dilemma for us. I think it's a very personal reflection, but it's kind of a dilemma because I know that if I have a job beyond my beyond my creation, I can't produce as much as I would like. I mean, I've only published 4 games in 10 years, which I consider to be not as much as I would have wanted to do. But the good side of it is that I can publish a game that I know no one will read, or just like 35 people, and it's okay because I like this game, and I don't have that much pressure. So this is kind of.
I've always wanted to be more in the sphere that you're talking about. I like to tell the anecdote that my original goal was to publish 750 copies of Physical Sorcerer.
Okay.
And that would be the end. That one print run, and I would just go back to PDFs and be happy. That was what I said in 2000.
Okay.
And at the time, even when I deviated from that, I knew I was right. And I was wrong to, continue. And that book publishing is nothing but grief. And I did several things happened. One is that the whole thing boomed much, much harder, than I ever would have expected or even wanted, frankly. And then also, my love affair with the life of the mind and my pride and enjoyment, my sense of in evolutionary biology, my sense of mission toward academics and the students, really hit a hard limit around 2009, 2010.
Okay.
Really hard. And I realized that it was taking far more from me than it was either benefiting others. That was the transition from into an administrative approach at our school that I abominate. I think is absolutely dreadful, and the impact on the department and on the program and on the students was grossly, obviously negative. And I could no longer feel that I was doing good work. And since I was most people don't know how badly American professors are paid. There's a certain very small subset of them who are extremely high status and extremely high paid. The rest, it's just dreadful. And I was actually at the top end of the band. Right. So, and I knew, this was as good. I was the envy of many people because of how well I was doing. And it was terrible. You couldn't raise 3 kids on it. You couldn't, and the drain was immense. And so, I've often said, you'll accept bad work for good pay. And you'll accept good work for bad pay. But,
not
at that point, you're like, all right, if I have to fight every minute for the work to be even sort of good. So I hit a very, very hard limit. And we started talking. We'd always talked seriously about moving to Sweden, and a very soft landing for us here. For lots of reasons, and the kids had been brought up to speak Swedish. They were Swedish citizens. They had visited many times. The moving there was just ordinary conversation in our house, and so. When we started seriously considering this, I quit my job in 2013 and finished working there in 2014. And the reason for that was that my book about evolutionary biology had been accepted by Oxford University Press, and I said, that's really what I want to do. The only intellectual thing I want to do from now, left, is to actually publish this book. So. I did my last year at the school and had given my notice and left. And the book is published. I don't know if you know about that.
No.
Okay. It's really, 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 really cool. And then, but that was really it. That was my done for that side of things. That meant when I moved to Sweden, the question was whether I would at least attempt to get back into academia, which I discovered something kind of interesting. Transition within academia is one thing. Stopping and restarting is another entirely.
Exactly.
And so, and also my motivation was extremely low.
I can understand
the idea of building, myself as a prof here was. With no landing spot, without people actually asking me to do it at the outset. I'm not stupid. That's the only way people get jobs like that, is when other people are pulling you. That's the only way. And so I said, really, I don't want to do it. I can be done. And to do that, I'm going to have to turn this gaming thing into a company again. I'm going to have to start doing that, and so I gave a lot of thought about how to do it. Some of that thought was successful, some of it's not. So I am actually a career gamer now. I have to play as the job, and whether that's stupid or not. But what you said is now I have to worry about European taxes. It's a Swedish business. I have to take that very seriously, and I have to promote. In ways that are not very comfortable for me personally.
And understand that.
And I've been sort of doing it my way. kind of a, here I am promoting myself and I'm doing it the wrong way, but fuck you and like it. It's sort of been my approach.
Yeah.
And I have found it, well, let's just say if we're having this conversation in 3 years and I'm happily sitting in a much neater, better organized, beautiful, very functional personal office, then we'll know that it worked. So far, I am proud to say that my first year was in the black.
Okay.
Not much, but and that I was fully in these last couple of months, fully and easily able to pay business taxes for the previous year, which in Sweden is actually saying something pretty important, because the business taxes are extremely high.
Welcome in Europe.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with that. My kids are going to school for free. My kids have got medical care for free because I do that, and I am okay with this completely. The adjustment to that lifestyle was already well established before I moved. It was no surprise at all. I was like, when do I pay my taxes? It's kind of my approach. And so the point being, though, that from a business standpoint, you need to budget for that from the beginning. You have to budget for your next year's taxes very seriously. And so it worked. So that's the first hump, right? Is actually getting through that cycle and not giving up. So.
But what I'm hearing from you also is there is much said between us as game publishers regarding what it means to go full fully profitable from not only from a professional but also from a personal level. We discuss this a lot when we meet, but never publicly. So I know a lot of details of my friends who have of their lives, of how they are organized themselves, to be able to profit from what they do. But
I remember some pretty good conversations at the Forge about this at the publishing forum. But of course, they were highly emotional, particularly among Americans who have a tendency to rate themselves as valuable people based on their profit margin. And in many, or the profit margin that they bring to whoever they work for. When your healthcare depends on that profit margin, you tend to overvalue it as personal identity. So there is that element of it that kind of made, and then there was the status game, right? Whose game is doing well, and whose game is all over, all that sort of thing. And so I can't think of a way for that conversation to be entirely free of those concerns.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also because we're discussing very intimate things.
Sure. I mean, this is this creative work. I mean, it's one of the I mean, this is very similar to, well, it's not similar to publishing novels or records or music. It is similar to making musical instruments. There is a very interesting variable out there, which is what all those primates out there are going to do with your thing. And so
it's a niche market.
Sure. Yeah. Now that's one thing that we actually talked about a great deal at the Forge, and I again took the contrary line that we weren't competing. That if people played my game and didn't play yours on the basis of preference, then that's neither here nor there. But if they played my game on the basis of preference, and then if I promoted your game as being in that same zone, that they would at least check it out, and that would be far more positive than negative. That most role players would be spending a fair amount of their disposable income, a certain amount every year. And that I wasn't stealing your sale. And establishing that and promoting each other. The original hobby back in the 70s, constant mutual promotion. among just constant. And I had seen that as a kid and wondered why it was gone.
Sure.
So I brought that back. I specifically advocated for that.
Yeah.
And so everybody started promoting each other, and it was very successful.
Yeah.
And so I think in France, you have you've internalized that really well. Everybody's saying, look, if you're playing this game, you might not like that game, but you have no reason not to check it out because you bought this one. Right.
Exactly.
And so, and I think that's a very healthy attitude.